It all started with a funeral. Not ours, ironically, but her uncle's. A man I had met maybe 3 times in my life. Always at stiff family functions, where the wine was expensive and the smiles were fake. We weren't exactly close with him, and by we, I mean my wife Claire. Her side of the family was the kind of wealthy that kept everything behind closed doors and didn't believe in expressing emotions unless they were in a will. So when Uncle Richard died, I didn't think much of it. We flew out, wore black, nodded, along to the eulogy, and watched the vultures gather. You could feel it in the air. Every cousin, second wife, estranged niece was there for one thing: the estate. Claire didn't say much the whole trip. She just kept biting her nails and checking her phone like something big was coming. I assumed it was nerves. It wasn't. 1 week later, we were back home, and a letter came by certified mail. Claire opened it while I was in the kitchen making coffee. She didn't scream. She didn't jump with joy. She just stared at the paper like it might vanish if she blinked. "What's that?" I asked. She handed it over without a word. I read it, and suddenly I understood why she looked like a ghost. She had inherited everything. I'm not talking a few $1,000 or a dusty painting. I'm talking the house in Connecticut, the summer, place in the Hamptons, a 6-figure stock portfolio, and enough antique art to fill a museum. Richard had no kids, and Claire, apparently the least problematic of the family, was named the sole heir. We were millionaires overnight. Laughed. I actually laughed when I read it. We'd always lived modestly. 2 cars, a small house, student loans, and now suddenly life had changed. "You know what this means?" I said. "We're done with debt. We can travel. Start that business you always wanted." But Claire didn't laugh. In fact, she barely reacted. Something in her eyes had shifted. Over the next few weeks, things started to feel off. She was on the phone constantly, whispering. Started going out alone more. Claimed she was meeting with estate lawyers or handling transition stuff. Then came the credit cards. Brand new ones. In her name only. I asked her what they were for, and she brushed it off. Just managing things separately. "For now," she said. I didn't argue, not at first. I figured we'd sort it all out when the dust settled. Then I found the prenup, hidden in the drawer of her home office. We never had a prenup. I read through it twice before it hit me. This was new, dated just 2 weeks after Richard's will came in. My signature was on it, forged. That was when alarm bells started screaming in my head. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. "Look," she said, arms folded like a cold lawyer in a courtroom. "You don't understand. This is my family's money. It needs to stay in the bloodline." "The bloodline?" I repeated. "We've been married for 5 years. I'm your husband, not some stranger on the street." She didn't blink. "It doesn't matter. My uncle didn't leave this to us. He left it to me. And I need to protect that. Protect it from me." The man who held her hand through 2 miscarriages. The man who worked double shifts when she got laid off. The man who gave up grad school to help support us. I felt like I'd just been hit by a truck. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because something told me this wasn't just about money. It was about intent. I needed to know how far she was willing to go. So I started watching. Quietly. Carefully. Like a detective in my own home. I checked her emails when she was asleep. Looked through her receipts, her call logs, and what I found blew everything wide open. Claire wasn't just planning to cut me out of the inheritance. She was planning to leave me altogether. I remember the moment it all truly snapped into focus. It was 2:47 a.m., 2 nights after I found the forged prenup. Claire was asleep, her phone face down on the nightstand. I picked it up, unlocked it with her thumb while she stirred in her sleep, and scrolled through her recent calls. There was one number that showed up a lot. No name attached. Just unknown. But the timestamps were always after midnight. 10-minute calls, 20-minute ones. some even longer. I opened her messages. That's when the bottom fell out of my stomach. The texts were gone, clearly deleted. But one remained. Just one, missed in the cleanup. I told him the prenup was signed before the will. He doesn't suspect a thing. My hands went ice cold. That was when I stopped thinking of Claire as my wife and started thinking of her as something else, something calculated, strategic. She was playing me. Every word, every look, even the quiet way she'd been tiptoeing around the house. I copied the number and called it from a burner app the next morning. A man answered. Calm, smooth voice. Yeah? I hung up. That voice, it wasn't unfamiliar, but I couldn't place it, and that made it worse. Like a splinter in my brain I couldn't pull out. By then I was sleeping on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because I couldn't look her in the eye anymore. Not without wondering how long she'd been lying. I hired a private investigator 2 days later. It wasn't cheap, but I figured if she was building a case against me, I needed one of my own. What the PI found, that changed everything. Claire had already rented a condo in a different city, 2 hours away, lease signed, deposit paid, furniture delivered, and she wasn't planning to live there alone. The name on the co-signer, Trevor James, the same Trevor I remembered from college. Her friend, who just happened to pop up every couple of years. Always when things got rocky between us. She used to say he was like a brother. Yeah, a brother who was now listed as a tenant on her secret apartment lease. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just went numb. But numbness is dangerous. Because it makes you quiet. Patient. And that's when I decided I wouldn't confront her anymore. I'd trap her. I gathered everything. Screenshots, emails, the forged prenup, bank transfers, her lease, even pictures from the PI. I made copies and locked them in a file. Sent one to a friend who's a divorce attorney, another to a secure drive. Then I waited. Waited for her to make the next move. And she did. One Thursday night, she came home late, again, and sat me down like she was about to read me a scripted speech. I think we should separate for a while, she said, eyes dry, tone flat. It's not about the money. It's about us. I almost laughed in her face, but I played dumb. Okay, I said softly, if that's what you need. She looked almost surprised, maybe even relieved. She packed the next day, left me with, the house, thinking she was so generous. Left me with nothing else. No access to accounts, no share of the inheritance, not even the car we co-owned. But she didn't know what I had. The files, the evidence, the proof. She had tried to bleed me dry, and now it was my turn. I didn't file the divorce papers immediately. I waited, because people like Claire, they get careless when they think they've already won. She moved into the new condo with Trevor James. Yes, that Trevor. The same guy who came to our wedding. Smiled for pictures, shook my hand. I watched from a distance, quietly building my case. Thanks to the PI, I had photos of them together. Dinners, movie nights. Even one shot that showed them entering a couple's spa. Both wearing matching robes, but I wasn't after revenge, not yet. I wanted something more important. Leverage. She had tried to erase me from her life and keep every cent of that inheritance. But here's what she didn't know, and what I had my lawyer quietly confirm. In our state, inheritance alone isn't considered marital property, unless it gets commingled. Meaning, if Claire had put any of that money into our joint accounts, used it to pay off our debts, or made any financial decisions that benefited both of us, it was now partially mine. And guess what? I had proof. Credit card payments. Renovations she made to our shared home using Richard's money. A new joint car title she forgot to remove my name from. Even a spa weekend she gifted us before the prenup trickery. All paid from a trust account tied to the estate. Claire had made the classic mistake. She thought she was smarter than the law, So while she was posting carefully cropped photos on Instagram, pretending to be finding herself, I was preparing to take back everything she tried to steal. The turning point came 2 months after she moved out. I walked into her lawyer's office with mine beside me, handed over a thick manila folder, and simply said, "Your client forged legal documents, attempted financial fraud, and committed commingling of inherited assets. Here's the proof. If she agrees to a clean 50-50 split of the estate, we'll call it even. If not, we go to court and the media sees everything." The look on that man's face. Priceless. They asked for 48 hours to respond. Claire called me the next day. First time we'd spoken in weeks. "You really want to drag this out?" she snapped. "You'll ruin us both." "You tried to ruin me first," I said calmly. "You almost did." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I didn't expect. "He was supposed to leave me, not you. I thought he'd choose me." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer, but it all clicked. Trevor. He hadn't signed onto her little escape plan out of love. He saw. The inheritance too. And somewhere along the way, he'd probably made it clear he wanted it all, without me in the picture. Except Claire messed up. She gave him what he wanted too soon, burned her bridges before the money was fully secured, and now she was stuck, alone, exposed, and in damage control mode. That's when I knew I had her. The next week, her lawyer agreed to our terms. 50-50 split. No court, no media. Just silence and signatures. But I wasn't done. Because even though I got my share of the inheritance, and even though I walked away clean, there was one thing left I needed to do. Tell her family. The same cold, upper-crust people who cared more about optics than emotion. The ones who adored Richard, treated Claire like the golden child, and looked down on commoners like me. So I sent them a package. Documents, photos, evidence of the forged prenup, screenshots of her texts with Trevor. I included a note. In case you ever wonder why she lost half of Uncle Richard's legacy. I didn't hear back. Didn't need to. But 3 days later, Claire messaged me. One line. They cut me off. After that last message from Claire, they cut me off. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She had bet everything on greed, played the long game with lies and fake signatures. And in the end, she lost the two things that mattered. Most to her, control and credibility. I'd like to say I felt satisfied, but I didn't. Not really. There's something hollow about winning when the person you used to love becomes your enemy. Something empty in knowing they would have burned your entire life to the ground if you hadn't caught them first. But closure? That came later. It came in a parking lot. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into her. Random grocery, store in a city neither of us had any real ties to. She was alone, hair shorter, no makeup, wearing a coat that didn't fit right. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had fought too many battles and ended up bruised by her own weapons. I nodded. She nodded back, and then, without warning, she said, "I thought you'd ruin me. Publicly. I'm still surprised you didn't." I shrugged. "You ruined yourself." She bit her lip, glanced at the ground. "He left," she mumbled. "Trevor, a month after I moved in. Said I was too complicated." I said nothing. "He just disappeared," she continued. "I thought I'd feel free. I thought money meant power. But it's just weight, and when you carry it alone, it gets heavy." I could have torn into her, thrown every insult I had, but I didn't. I just nodded once more and said, "Take care of yourself." Then I walked away. And that was the last time I saw her. Since then, life's been quieter, simpler. I used my half of the inheritance to pay off my debts, set up a small business. Nothing flashy, just enough to stay steady. There's peace in that. In knowing I earned what I have, and didn't steal it from someone who trusted me. Sometimes I think about the version of Claire I married. The woman who laughed with her head back, who wanted a garden and dreamed of having a dog. I wonder when she started fading, and when the version that lied, manipulated, and forged my name took her place. Was it always in her? Or did money bring it out? I guess I'll never really know. But one thing I do know: if someone shows you who they are when they think you're not looking, believe them. And if they try to bury you, make sure you're the one holding the shovel when the dust settles.